Hi, welcome to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Maria Andrea, and this is my September book haul. So it was the end of summer, and I ended summer with a huge book buying bang. I think in the month of September, I purchased the most books in the month before fall started at the end of the month. And I want to share the books that I purchased. So I did some traveling, but before I traveled, I went to my local independent bookstore to pick up the book club book that I had ordered. So I have not won in those voting polls for the book club in like all summer long, and then I voted for this book and it won. And so of course I ordered it. So this is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this is inspired by The Island of Dr. Moreau, written by H.G. Wells. And it's set in Mexico. Yeah, it's a dreamy reimagining of the island of Dr. Moreau set against the backdrop of the 19th century Mexico. So it's Carlota Moreau, the young woman living on a remote and luxuriant estate, safe from the conflict and strife of the Yucatan Peninsula, the only daughter of the researcher who is either a genius or a madman, Montgomery Liftin, a melancholic overseer with a tragic past and propensity for alcohol outcast who assists Dr. Moreau with his experiments, which are financed by the Lizaldes, owners of the magnificent haciendas and plentiful coffers, and the hybrids, the fruits of the doctor's labor, destined to blindly obey their creator and remain in the shadows, a motley group of part human, part animal monstrosities. All of them live in perfectly balanced and static world, which is jolted by the abrupt arrival of Eduardo Lizalde, the charming and careless son of Dr. Moreau's patron, who will unwittingly begin a dangerous chain reaction. I'll leave it there. I also purchased a bookmark and a sticker. So it's Read Them Books and a quote by Stephen Chomsky that says, "Banning books gives us silence when we need speech, it closes our ears when we need to listen, and makes us blind when we need sight." So I bought this in support of Ban Books Week. And then I was talking to my friends, and my friend owns this bookstore, and we were talking about the month of August, and I was telling her I read a lot of really heavy books in August, and I needed something light, and she recommended these to me. I haven't read them. I meant to read them, but I forgot to pack them in my bag. I ended up taking a bunch of like shorties because I was trying to read for Shorty September, and I thought I'll take a couple of these shorties, and then I didn't get to travel with these. So this one, Bless Your Heart, Tramp and Other Southern Endearments by Celia Rivenbark, author of We're Just Like You, Only Prettier. It's supposed to be wickedly funny, bright, witty, and warm. It says, step into the wacky world of womanless wedding fundraisers in which bubbas wear boas, meet two sisters who fight rural boredom by washing Budweiser cans and cutting them into pieces to make clothing. Learn why the word snow sent any right-thinking Southern careening to the Food Lion for extra loaves of bread and little elf. Humor columnist and slightly crazed belle by birth, Celia Rivenbark tackles these and other lard-laden subjects in Bless Your Heart Tramp with a hilarious look at Southern and just plain human foibles up close and personal. I don't know. It looks like it's supposed to be funny. And this one is Movie Star by Lizzie Pepper, a novel by Hilary Liftin. I've never heard of this book. I've never heard of this author, but this was recommended by one of the book club members at the bookstore. And it says Vanity Fair says it's a hilarious tabloid trashing gotcha novel. It's supposed to be gossipy and fun, tabloids. So anyway, my friend said these were supposed to be light and just funny, not anything too intense. So those came on to my shelves in the month of September. Then I went to Houston, and I went to go meet with one of my friends and colleagues, and we're working on a presentation together. So we took a break. We started the day with a break. We started the day with a trip to the bookstore. And she'd never been to Brussels bookstore, and she knows I love Brussels bookstore, so she recommended that we go together. She really wanted to go. And I was so honored to be with her, that, like, go with her on her first trip to Brussels. So I got some stuff there. There's something else that I got there, but I'll get it in a little bit. So the first book that I have here that I got there was The Details, a novel by Ia Genberg, shortlisted for the 2024 International Booker Prize, translated by Kira Josefsson. The New York Times Book Review says it's hot to the touch. What sold this book to me was a blurb by Hernan Diaz, Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Trust. And it says, the miraculous sort of novel that fuses with our personal memories and becomes part of us. The back says, an intoxicating novel about a woman in the throes of a fever, remembering the important people in her past, her memories laid bare in vivid detail as her body temperature rises. The Details is a novel built around 4 exhilarating, provocative portraits. Genberg raises profound questions about our relationships and how we tell our stories. The result is an intimate and illuminating study of what it means to be human. So this is The Details by Ia Genberg. And it was one that I bought because I was hoping to get to it in September for Shorty September. It's a short book. I didn't get to it, but I'll get to it. And then this one, People from My Neighborhood by Hiromi Kawakami, translated by Ted Goossen. I was definitely into translated fiction during this trip to Brussels. So this is from the author of the internationally best-selling Strange Weather in Tokyo, a collection of interlinking stories that masterfully blend the mundane and the mythical. So I really enjoyed Strange Weather in Tokyo, and I like interlinking stories. So it's like a collection of short stories. And of course, there's 2 authors on the back here that blurbed it that I really enjoy these authors. So the first one is Gali Fajardo-Einstein, author of Sabrina and Corrina. I can't stop talking about Gali and Sabrina and Corrina. So Gali's blurb says, I love these distinctive characters and their stories with universal underpinnings of folklore and myth. Reading this book felt like I was on a guided walking tour of a community led by Kawakami's singular sensibility, and elastic range. And then Brian Washington, author of Memorial and Lot, wrote, Kawakami reminds us what a gift and a rarity it is to read her work. Her characters love, lose, grow, and fall, while Kawakami paints murals of their lives with the deftest of hands. The depth and complexity of these stories is simply beyond, and Kawakami's prose from cover to cover couldn't be a bigger joy to live with. I really like this cover too. It's beautiful. So this is People from My Neighborhood by Hiromi Kawakami, translated by Ted Goossen. And then In the Distance by Hernan Diaz, Pulitzer Prize finalist. I'm really curious about Hernan Diaz. I have watched interviews with Hernan Diaz. I am very curious. I've not read Trust, and I've been meaning to, but I think this is his most recent release, so I picked it up. And it's blurbed by Lauren Groff and Paul Yoon. Of course, New York Times, Pulitzer Prize, Publishers Weekly. I don't really want to know more about this book. I just want to know that it's Hernan Diaz, and that's all. Yeah, I think I just want to not know anything about it. I have not read anything about it. And then I bought this one. So this is I Love Romcoms and I Am a Feminist, a Manifesto in 100 Romcoms by Corrina Antrobus, illustrated by Vulga Drawings. it is such a fun book, like to look at, to hold. It's a hardcover. The back says, discover the story of feminism in 100 rom-coms. In this fearlessly feminist guide, film critic Corrina Antrobus celebrates the empowering nature of rom-coms. Could the film genre be the most feminist of all? Across 100 diverse movies, I Love Rom-Coms and I Am a Feminist explores how rom-coms reflect, and in some cases have even progressed the feminism of the time. Discover how When Harry Met Sally opened up honest conversations about female orgasms, 10 Things I Hate About You taught girls they don't need to conform, and Crazy Rich Asians was an ode to the independent woman. With razor-sharp illustrations by the inimitable Vulga drawings, this feminist manifesto will turn your guilty pleasure into pride and prove you can love rom-coms and be a feminist. So, for example, the artwork in here is really cool. Okay, there it is. And this is the rom-com that explored all options when it came to having kids, and it's Sex in the City. This one is the rom-com that reflects on being a better feminist, and it's 13 going on 30. The rom-com that reversed the dumb blonde stereotype, and that's Legally Blonde. So it's just essays on different rom-coms. Like this one. The rom-com that left Prince Charming at the altar, and that's While You Were Sleeping. There's one more thing I bought. I bought this. So it is Loteria poems by Esteban Rodriguez. So it's like a deck of cards, like the Loteria cards. And each card has a poem. So this is La Chalupa, and then there's a poem featuring La Chalupa. I thought this would be fun every now and again for poetry, Thursday night poetry. So for some of them, like, I might be drawing from here. I'm thinking maybe for the month of October, some. I haven't decided what to do with Thursday night poetry in the month of October, but this might be an option, because it's still Hispanic Heritage Month. So I could read poems from the Loteria cards. And then I went to Portland, Oregon, and I visited Powell's bookstore. And I initially had told myself, I'm just going to buy 4 books at Powell's. That didn't happen. I walked into the store, and the first book that caught my eye was this one. And it's not really a book, it's more like a little pamphlet. Like, feels like a pamphlet. And they had this in like the entry tables. And it had one of those tables with like staff picks or staff recommendations. And it's What Guinea Pigs Can Teach Us About Life, How Sleeping Piggies Show Rest as Resistance and Yawning as Care by Virginia Cafaro. So that's a topic that I've been studying a lot lately, is rest as resistance and the notion of self-care and what that really means or doesn't mean. And I thought this is perfect reading to accompany my serious studying and researching on the topic. So I'm gonna read it this month for sure. And then, okay, I did a couple of different stops in Portland. So another book I got at Powell's is this one, another shorty. This is The Seventh Garment by Eugenia Facanu. I love this cover, the woman sleeping under the tree. So the back says, I love women and wildflowers. I love the colors of wildflowers, white, yellow, and purple. These are the colors of the land. In ancient times, people painted their statues those colors, and in later times they painted their doors and window frames. People don't paint their doors and window frames anymore. Those are the colors of crocuses and anemones, lilies, irises, and asphodel, white, yellow, and purple. Women are suffering greatly again. It is women who write history. They carry the world's great events on their shoulders. These words announce the tragedy that is about to begin. Through the lives of 3 women, the contemporary history of Greece is told. From the War of Independence waged against the Turks in the 1820s to the dictatorship of the Cardinals in 1967 to 1974, the novel begins and ends with the tree, a mystical force of nature that links the experience of the elder women to the world of Greek myth and to more recent folklore and beliefs. Like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Milan Kundera, and Salman Rushdie, Eugenia Facanu writes within a magical realist tradition, a tradition born in ancient Greece. In haunting mesmeric language, she shows the traumatic effect of history on people's lives. So all of this resonated with me, particularly the concept of myth and magical realism and Greek myth especially. I'm into mythology, so I think this is a great read for me. I'd never seen this book, heard of this author, so when I got to Powell's, I went to the front and like asked for a map, and then I told the person at the counter, I was like, how would you recommend a first-time visitor approach this bookstore? And he said, just walk around and explore. Powell's is really good at having those shelf talkers, so that was really helpful. So I just kind of went for a stroll, and I didn't worry about genre or mood. Like really, I wasn't like thinking I'm into science fiction lately, so I'm gonna spend all my time in sci-fi. I just walked around, and so I came upon this one, and I was looking for books that I'd never heard of or seen, and like this one I'd never heard or seen before. And so the thrill of discovery, like discovering new authors, new books, was what was really motivating me, because Powell's is very overwhelming, and I think if I didn't have the motivation of discovery, I would have just become very overwhelmed and frustrated and tired. But I just let the mood and the motivation of discovery guide my visit to Powell's, and that was like perfect. Then I came across this one. So I'd never heard of this book. I don't know if you have, but it's Mistletoe Malice by Kathleen Farrell. So it's blurbed by Meg Mason, the author of Sorrow and Bliss. And I have heard of Meg Mason, and I am wanting to read Sorrow and Bliss. And so Meg Mason says this is literary comfort and joy. It got me out of mourning for the Cassavants. Rachel Joy is the author of The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, says it's a stylish and penetrating comedy of manners. Chekhov with more cigarettes and English emotional frigidity. My favorite Christmas book by far, and you can read it all year round. So I'm really excited. Like, this is a book that I want to read this Christmas, this holiday season. This is really striking a chord with me, and I love the French flaps. I don't even want to read. I didn't read the flap. I just saw it. I think it had a staff recommendation or a shelf talker, and that's how it got my attention. And I loved it. I'd never heard of it. Loved the cover, and I thought this is my holiday read. I saw this again. Like the discovery was like key here. The Madness Face, poetry by Andrea Gibson. I've heard of Andrea Gibson. I had never seen this book before. So it says, in 2010, Andrea Gibson's poetry was read by a state representative in lieu of morning prayer at the Utah State Legislature. In The Madness Vase, her second book of poems, Gibson seizes us by the collar, hauls us inside some of her darkest moments, then releases us to the other side. The pieces in this collection delve intimately into the topics of family, war, sex, class, gender, and spirituality. They are a rally cry for action and a welcome mat at the door. of Heart's Most Compassionate Room. The Denver Westward says, if spoken word were professional boxing, Andrea Gibson would be the lightweight you don't think much of until she knocks you flat on your ass. I think that's pretty telling. So I know that when I first opened it, it opened up to a poem, and I read the poem, and I just started laughing. I don't think I'm going to be able to it's not sticking out to me today, but like I just literally like opened it, and it was that poem, and I read it, and I just started laughing, and I thought I'm taking this book. So that's one. And then I also found this one. This one I had seen, and I think I had purchased the Kindle. So I have the ebook of this one. But I saw it, and I thought, why not get it? I think I just love the presentation of it. This is my kind of book. It's got the deckled edges, and it's got the French flaps, and I know it's a book that's been calling my attention because I purchased the ebook. I think I got a deal on it. So I got it, and this is a short story collection. So, well, a novel and short stories and stories. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't want to read anything about it, but I know that there are different stories, and I just want to be surprised. No, this one I got the other one, and then I got this one. So this is Sift by Elisa Hatman. I'll read the back of this one because I did read it in the store. Two women set out through the haze of social and environmental collapse in search of fertile soil. As they travel through deserts, burned over forests, and lightless mountain caverns, they learn to navigate the terrain of their evolving connection. An invocation, an elegy, a postcard home. Sift is a story about family wounds, humanity's failures, how to care for one another at the end, and how to make a new beginning. I really felt like something about this felt like something I really needed. It's the collection of poems, and I like that. I like stories about that imagine the end of the world. I don't know, that might sound terribly morbid, but negative, maybe but I like stories that are about collapse or destruction. I feel like this being a story of wounds, family wounds, and humanity's failures, and how to care for one another at the end, and how to make a new beginning. That kind of reminds me a little bit about of Station 11, when the end is also the beginning, in kind of like a meta kind of a way. So I'm looking forward to these poems and see how they add to the conversation of collapse. And I'm also really into environmental dystopian fiction. So imagining climate change and environmental suffering. I think that those are stories that are important to think about. So to then spur action, or allow us to live in a way that prepares future generations for what's to come. So I don't know if we even know what's to come, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just I think I like having those thoughts of looking, trying to look forward, but also see an ending as a possible beginning. I don't know. I need to process this a little bit further to be able to make sense, but this definitely felt like something that resonates with me. And also poetry. This is the 29th year poems by Hala Alyan. I actually have had this on my wish list and TBR for a really long time. And I saw it and I thought, I think it's the time to get it. Hala Alyan is known for her book Salt Houses. So she's an award-winning Palestinian-American poet and novelist, a clinical psychologist, as well as the author of Salt Houses. Asia Monet, whom I've talked about on my channel before, blurbed this, and so that stood out to me too. And it felt like perfect timing because I was just learning about Asia Monet recently and talking about Asia Monet's poetry and spoken word performance and on the Tiny Desk concert with NPR. Anyway, Asia Monet blurbed this and said, "These stunning poems endure the unendurable, illuminating both the powerlessness of pain and the relentless courage of love." Says Hala Alyan's ever-shifting subversive verse sifts, which felt like it was in conversation with this one. This is sifts, so sifts together and through different form of forced displacement and the tolls they take on mind and body. Poems made from war-torn cities in the Middle East to an Oklahoma Olive Garden to a Brooklyn brownstone, from alcoholism to recovery, from a single woman to a wife. The collection summons breathtaking chaos, which steeps into the bones of these odes, the shapes of these elegies. So, again, I think all of these books sound like they're in conversation with each other, and it's no wonder why they all stood out. Like they weren't all like shelved right next to each other, but they all stood out to me and like called to me. And I feel like now as I'm thinking about it, they're all in conversation with each other, which is really, really cool. The way I went about picking books to bring home that all were in line, like in the same wavelength. That's really interesting. And then I told myself that I wanted a book that was either set in the Pacific Northwest or that had been recommended by my friend, my booktube friend, Melinda out of Webless Stories. Because Melinda's from the Pacific Northwest. She's from Oregon. So she's been talking about this one forever. And it was shelved in the section of like Pacific Northwest writers. And this is an anthology, so it's an indigenous dark fiction anthology, different authors. I think maybe some of these, not all of them, are from the Pacific Northwest. But it also was Melinda recommended, has been talking about this, didn't recommend it to me personally, but has just been talking about this so much on her channel that it was just kind of like, yeah, this checks the boxes for what I'm looking for to buy as a souvenir. So the stories are by Norris Black, Amber Blazer Worsdala, Phoenix Bedreau, Sherry DeMoline. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them, but the ones that stand out, Darcy Little Badger, Nick Medina, Tommy Orange, Rebecca Roanhorse, Morgan Talty, and then a bunch of other ones that are new authors to me that I can't wait to discover. So this is going to be part of my fall TBR. Spoiler alert. So this is another one that I purchased at Powell's, and this is set in Oregon, in Portland specifically. So it's a Portland author and illustrator, and this is her diary. I think when they first moved. In 2001, Carson Ellis moved into a warehouse in Portland, Oregon with a group of fellow artists. For the first week she lived there, she kept a detailed diary full of dry observations, more than wit, hijinks with friends, and turn of the millennium cultural touchstones. Now Ellis has richly illustrated this 2-decade-old journal in the signature style that has made her an award-winning picture book author today. This beautiful volume offers a snapshot of a bygone era, a meticulous recreation of quotidian frustrations and small meaningful moments, and a meditation on what it means both to start your journey as an artist and to look back at the beginning many years later. So this is an autographed edition of the book, and I've been gravitating towards stories that are like journal entries that I think I showed Frida Kahlo's journal just the other day in a haul, and this is also like an artist journal, and I've been trying to be more consistent in my journaling, and I was looking for books that are inspiring to me in the way of journaling, and journaling the tiniest moments that feel so small and insignificant. And so I got this because I felt like this was inspiration for me. Then we went to a Japanese stationery / bookshop, and it was really, really cool. Like, that was such a cool store. It reminded me of my booktube friend Mimi from It's Mimi Duong. In her in My Wildest Dreams tab, she talked about having a bookstore that had a huge stationery, like had a great stationery selection. And I think this shop was like almost to Mimi's dreams. Like, it had an amazing stationery. Like, it was like half stationery shop, half bookshop. It had really like awesome like selection of mangas, comics, graphic novels. It also had novels, and it was really cool because most of the stuff in there was Asian. So it was a lot of like mostly Asian authors and stories, and it was really, really cool. So I got this because it stood out to me. It's a tiny, tiny book. I was really into shopping for shorties because, and I think that's why I ended up buying more than I expected, because I thought like, okay, well, I thought 4 hardcovers, but if I'm just taking little shorty books that don't weigh, I can spare more room. So this is The Enlightenment of Katsuo Nakamatsu by Augusto Iga Oshiro, translated from the Spanish by Jennifer Shui, Archipelago Books. And this was really, really cool. So it says, the inside flap says, Katsuo Nakamatsu has a recurring dream. He's strolling down the glinting avenues of Lima, Peru, branches crowning overhead, when he hears someone snickering from the shadows. He wanders away in concentric circles and wakes in a sweaty torment. The former professor is undeniably unraveling. Wandering the streets, his encounters increasingly turn toward the absurd or surreal. He runs into a Tchaikovsky humming friend, and they have a forthright conversation about suicide before falling into convulsions of laughter later on. Nakamatsu encounters a brood of flies that whispers to him of his forebears' arrival along the coast of Peru. Iga Oshiro writes of the crushing racism and social rejection experienced by Japanese immigrants in Peru, and Nakamatsu considers how pressure to assimilate has dissolved his paternal inheritance, leaving nothing but obscure tendencies and islets in his unconscious. These radiating channels of Japanese identity and memory course with life in Iga Oshida's spellbinding novella. I liked the idea of a story in which the main character is unraveling, and I think just the psychological story, like the psychological background in this, is going to be really interesting for me. One of the blurbs here says, Augusto Iga Oshida's portrait of a man slowly losing his mind reads like a fever dream or an exorcism. And I thought, yeah, that's Mei Li Chai. And then the bookseller at that bookstore recommended this book to me. And it's been a book that's been on my TBR for the longest times. And it's been one that I've been wanting to read. So when they recommended it to me, I thought, well, okay, sure, I'll take it. Maybe this is the right time to get it. So this is More Days at the Morizaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa. And the bookstore, the bookseller said they can't keep this book on the shelf. Like as soon as they put it out, it's like gone. So I thought it's time to get to this book. It's the follow-up to the Days at the Morizaki Bookshop. And then we went to an art museum, Hopscotch, and I got this book and I read it like on my flight home. So this is Walking with Ramona, Exploring Beverly Cleary's Portland. I didn't get to do the Beverly Cleary tour, but I would like to. And my husband and I had so much fun in Portland that we both kind of said we definitely want to come back. And next time we go back, I am doing the Beverly Cleary tour. And so I read this on the trip back and I was pointing it out to him and telling him, it's just so much fun. Like this little book is like a gem. It talks about Beverly Cleary, and all of Beverly Cleary's characters are inspired by people in real life and real places. And it was just really cool to read about Portland through the eyes of Ramona and friends. And so loved it. And that is all. That is my September book haul. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk soon. Hasta la próxima.